Welcome everyone to the Wild Wild West. No, to Dax Electronic Repair. Today we're going to be doing a Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, which is basically the Note, because there is no Note anymore. All right. So first thing you do, get your razor blade in there, enough to get your plastic pick in there, and then you start to slowly go around. Heat is your best friend. I actually use my heat gun at 100 degrees Celsius. That lets the adhesive soften enough to pry enough and cut it without breaking the back, which is the back glass on these is very fragile. So if you just pry on it, you will crack it, and that's not good. So I've got this sped up real fast, about 800 times normal speed, so it does take a while, and it will, and be patient. That's the lesson there. Few picks and some heat. Just take your time. That's the takeaway on this one. Don't put your picks in too far either. There are ribbon cables and things that can be damaged if you just go crazy and stick it in too far. You are almost ready to go. And yep, there you go. It's off. All right, back is off. So first thing we're going to do is start taking some brackets and screws, some screws out to get brackets out. And as I usually do, there I'm showing you the 6 screws that we're going to be taking out right away. Nope, 5, sorry. That's going to let us get to the battery first. And again, I use the OEM service packages direct from Samsung. And it is the frame and screen assembly. So I'm not actually switching the, there's some adhesive right there that you got to pry up a little bit on. And then you've got a couple of ribbon connectors you have to undo too. Right, those two right in the middle there. Yeah, perfect. As I was saying, I use the frame and screen combos. So basically what we'll be doing is just replacing all the not replacing, but moving all the internals from this frame to a new frame that has the screen built in. Much simpler repair, much more sturdy repair. So that's the way I do it. All right, so we've got that top bracket off, and we're going to go ahead and get the bottom one off as well. This one's got a few different things on it. It's got the speaker mounted in it, and then it just retains a bunch of cables as well, just like the top one. And of course, before we go too far, we're going to go ahead and pull the battery. That's the battery cable right there. We don't want the battery plugged in because it will kill you. No, it's not true. It won't kill you, but it will kill the phone if you put metal things in it when it has battery juice running through it. All right, so I wouldn't even pry like that unless the battery was disconnected. So go ahead and pry up, and we can get our bottom assembly out of there. Just a little bit of adhesive was kind of holding it on, but it's not actually connected to anything. I do that as one piece. You can take it apart piece by piece. It's just easier to do it as one piece. You can put it back as one piece. The wireless connector, or the wireless charging port, wireless charger, is adhesive. All right, bottom we have a SIM card reader, or a SIM card slot. This phone actually does also eSIMs, so there may not actually be a SIM in it. Most phones are going to eSIMs. All right, so before we go any further, I'm going to go ahead and get our new frame and screen assembly. And there you can see it. It's the whole deal. And we're just going to go ahead and hook it up to our old to our components, but we're gonna basically just power this new screen with the old stuff still in place, because if we have a bad screen, there's no reason to take this any more apart. Gotta plug the battery in, of course, to get it some juice. But basically right now, all we're doing is testing the new screen. Make sure it works right, make sure it turns on, make sure it doesn't have dead pixels. Coolio. All right, Samsung, beautiful. And then I kind of cut my fingers around the screen there. Make sure we don't have any dead pixels or pixels showing where they shouldn't be. So that is good enough to proceed. I do a little bit more testing, but that's good. So old screen, new screen off. Now we take everything out of the old screen. And of course, before I actually touch anything, battery off. All right, bottom, daughter board or sub board. We're taking those out, 3 screws. Remember to organize your screws as you take the stuff apart. You want them to go back in the same holes they came out of. You're also going to go ahead and take all the cables off of there. You can see how they say main and sub on the top and bottom. That's how they go back in. Top board is main, bottom board is sub. So we're going to go ahead and pry out our daughter board or sub board. Pry it up like that from that side because it angles in. And just put it to the side. We're going to do the same deal on the top. We do have another bracket and some more screws to take out before we do so. So we're going to go ahead and do that. All the screws around our front-facing camera. 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 right there, and then there's going to be a little black one that we'll do here in a second. That's all by itself over on that camera. Okay, go through, disconnect all your ribbon cables that are connected to your main board, because we're going to be lifting it out. And you don't want to break these little ribbon cables. They're fragile. This one kind of angles up towards the top like that. And there's that final screw I was telling you about. That holds our rear-facing cameras in. All right, front-facing camera needs to be undone right there. We've got one of our antennas right there. Battery we already did. Looks like everything else is unplugged. All right, angle it out in that way. Make sure to not bend or break cables. And then there's a couple more things we need to get out of this phone, or out of the old frame. There's a couple sensors and our front-facing camera. Front-facing camera is held in with adhesive. It almost looks kind of like glue stick glue, but it's really in there. So heat it up. If you try and pry it out, I have broken one of these doing that. So now I heat the daylights out of it because I don't want to replace those anymore because they're expensive. And yeah, you lose money that way. All right, here is one of our antennas. We will be switching as well. It had that little adhesive on the top of it. It's kind of just a barrier. This one is not held in by anything but a little bit of adhesive. So you can just kind of pry it out. If it doesn't come right away, get some heat on it. That's fine too. Our other antenna is over here. It's actually underneath some of our back gasket material, so if that's stuck to yours, there's a couple screws under there. Interestingly enough, the new frame does not come with holes for these screws. I don't know why. They're just not machined into it. I've noticed that since the S21. The OEM aftermarket, just, they don't, I don't know, they don't put the holes in there. So you're not going to reuse those screws. That's okay. All right, so that sensor is out as well. And now finally, we are going to pull the battery. That's the last thing we need. This one actually has a neat little, and I think this is new for the 23. I don't remember it being on the 22. But it actually gives you a battery removal pulling system type deal. So you actually just pull it up and up and up and up. You don't even have to heat it like you did with the ones before. You had to heat up the front of the screen. This one you just pull and it actually unsticks itself. And the cool thing about that is you just peel it like this. Pull it out and then you pull the adhesive up and you actually put it back on. So you're basically, you can reuse the adhesive, which is cool. Usually you have to put double-sided tape down or get a new battery adhesive, but not with this one. So now we're just going to go ahead and start rebuilding in our new frame, doing everything we just did, but backwards, forwards, because that's what makes sense. All right, just a couple little pieces of shipping material that covers and protects things. There's one over the camera there. This new screen has a little bit of adhesive for the front-facing camera. It's not nearly as thick as the old one. It doesn't matter. The new, I mean, you can go in there with some B7000 or whatever you have if you want. But you do run the risk of getting it on the front of the camera. But the bracket holds it down enough that you don't really need it. All right, so you want to angle your board in and under all the new ribbon cables. Make sure you're not on top of them, especially when you start screwing things down with the brackets. So if you look in the middle there, there's the screw hole. If this is not sitting completely even, there's a ribbon cable underneath. All right, so we put our antenna back in. And our little piece of gasket material or whatever it is, just kind of like a little barrier thing. Our one screw for our camera. And then we can put our top bracket on. And while you're doing this, make sure you're plugging everything back in as you go. So you don't want to find out at the very end that you forgot to do something. Forgot to plug something in, because you have to tear it all back apart. All right, screws back in. Going in the holes they came out of again. Make a pattern on your magnetic. I use a little magnetic mat from iFixit, and I organize everything. All right, here's that sensor, and as you can see, there are no holes. So we're going to put down a little bit of adhesive, double-sided tape down in that hole. That's going to hold it. You don't really have to do this. It's not really going to rattle around because you got the back on, but if you have it, do it. I mean, whatever. All right, now we're putting our subboard, daughter board in. Remember, you want to angle it in with the port going down in first. Got our 3 screws we're going to put back in. And then we're going to start putting our cables back in. Remember, main and sub, they literally cannot go in places that they are not supposed to go. So if they don't snap in or they're different sizes, that's not where it goes. So don't put it there. But basically medium, fat, and then small as far as sizes from closest to furthest. Beautiful. All right, so we have everything hooked up. We've got our SIM card we're putting back in, or SIM card holder, rather. And now we're just going to go and do our final assembly. Take our one big piece that has our wireless. Oh, yep. Don't forget to plug your battery back in before you put, and I always test it again just in case. It worked, it just shows 0%. You have to plug the battery in before you put this panel back on because it sits underneath the bracket that you're screwing on. So don't forget to do that. Otherwise, you will put it all back together and it will not power back on. And you'll be like, what's happening? And I told you why. That's why. Angle that one down, same way you did with the daughter board as well. It will snap into place. It will be completely level. It will make some satisfying clicks when it does go all the way down. All right, screws back in. We're rounding the final corners. Now you got a couple sensors there, and obviously your wireless charger needs to be plugged in. And then we put our 5 screws back in there for our bracket. And then you get your back on with the adhesive on it. Go around slowly. And guess what? That's it. Thank you so much for checking out my video. Please like, subscribe, and comment. And again, thank you for watching. I love you all.